This state championship has kept us connected. We go around the community and people see us and recognize us. We see one another here and there, and we have something that has kept us bonded. It's something we'll never forget.
Anything is possible. That's the one thing that like really has cemented itself in my mind as I go along and I grow older and I see what the ripple effects of that moment have created in this community. And that's like the thing that I'm most proud of, is just like having created a soccer community in a town that really wasn't known for soccer.
This was a championship 4 years in the making. McMinnville boys soccer grew steadily between 2003 and 2006. There were breakthrough victories over Woodburn, back-to-back Pacific Conference titles. There were 3 trips to postseason that all ended in defeat in the second round.
It was what we called the second round curse, right? As good as the team was, we just could not get over that hump, especially my sophomore year. And I think that's sort of where things started to shift. I have an older brother who was a junior and a senior I played with. His class 2 was the one that started to mold this group of players.
In August 2006, the Grizzlies were ready to take the next step. They had depth and experience, but just days before the first game, Coach Danny Malieu stepped down. Mac High then reached into the soccer community and brought in Joe Crabtree, who went right to work.
Joe and I go back. He was my soccer coach growing up when I was in middle school. It was kind of a natural kind of blend when we took over the varsity team. So I've known him for many years.
He was such a special guy in the way that he motivated guys. At the very beginning of the season, we had like our locker room, which was just a shed at the time. He put up a newspaper article that was Matty Van Houten, and he's like, no one thinks you guys are going to do anything. Like, this is everyone's saying Jesuits won it. Just from that season, just like setting that tone and being like, all right, like Jesuit isn't taking this again. Like we're going to do something about this.
Seniors Kevin Donato and Frankie Lopez were the heart and soul of the group. Lopez notched 39 goals and became the program's all-time leading scorer that fall.
Frankie was our goal scorer. He was our offense. Juan Gavidia was in the middle and controlled our flow, right? In defense was our freshman sensation, Jonathan Flores, and Jeremy in the goal was very key. Everybody filled in perfectly. Andy Ochoa on the wing, on the right wing. I was on the left wing. It was just fitting the right pieces to the puzzle.
So it just depended on what we needed in that particular game, what Joe needed out of the team, because he would make weird moves. I mean, I remember coming in at midfield one point during the season just to play defense. We had Adam McDougall, center defense. That changed a little bit because at first it was just Ryan Briggs. Johnny ended up coming back into that position because Ryan got hurt. And then the right defender was Victor Torres. And Victor was one of those guys, he started off as a forward and then worked his way back, but developed a lot as a defender and just really added to that. And then Jeremy was just like our goalie. I mean, he was just so good. And it was crazy because like so many weird things happened going into that season.
Kevin was that even keel, very likable among every class that he went through. A true leader, a good example, and, just a great person. He was one of those players that you want to have. He was the glue of the team. Everybody respected Kevin. I mean, I always say this, we might have not been the best team, but we had the perfect puzzle pieces to make it work. And I think everybody had their role, from Andy Ochoa to Ryan Briggs. I mean, I can go on from every player, but I mean, these are all good memories from each.
The Grizzlies came out of the box fast, scoring goals in bunches and winning their first 8 games until an October loss to the eventual conference champion, Tualatin. Frankie Lopez then stepped up at a homecoming rally and announced the team intended to not just win the league, but the state title as well. Finishing second in the Pacific made that road a bit tougher. The call-up of junior varsity players would help make the difference. Edgar Manriquez, Chris Rojas, and Jake Baker would all play a role in the march to a championship.
Juan Campos and Gabi looking at and recognizing like these individual talents that existed on the JV team, and we're like, okay, well, let's put them on varsity, let's put them here, like see how they succeed. And it was their ability to actually recognize their individual contributions. I remember having a conversation with Jake. He doesn't remember this conversation, but he told me I'm gonna be varsity when I'm a freshman, and I always made fun of him about it.
It was that freshman, Jake Baker, who would score 5 goals, including the critical game-tying brace in the final against Jesuit. The road to the final included 2 easy playoff victories against North Salem and Clackamas. Then a penalty kick shootout against number 1 ranked South Eugene in the quarterfinal. In the semis, the Grizzlies had to come from a 2-0 deficit in the second half to force extra time before beating South Salem 6-2. Lopez scored 4 times and assisted on another. That set up the championship matchup with number 2 ranked Jesuit and Matty Van Houten, considered by many to be the state's top player. McMinnville was considered to be a huge underdog. Coach Joe Crabtree knew his team was better.
It was a well-fought battle throughout the game, but I would definitely, that's things that sticks out to me is the PKs, the penalty kicks that we went to. I mean, it's really unheard of in a state championship to get to. I think there was 7 to 8. Weber was definitely the all-star and the well-deserved Golden Glove. That was intense. I remember losing feelings in my hands just because I was so nervous and squeezing so tight. But nonetheless, one thing that stood out for me was Gustavo Mendoza. We went to PKs in the quarterfinals, and I remember we went and chose our players, and each and every one of them would either accept. And I remember Gustavo Mendoza was one of the players. He's like, Coach, I'm not feeling it. So we're like, okay. So we had somebody else step up, and they took it, and we moved on. We were going through our list of players, and he was still a candidate, and we asked him. I don't think we asked him, though, but I remember he came up to me, and he's like, I can do it, Coach. And I remember he took, and he was the last player to score the winning goal, and, it's really cool to see those stories where they kind of exceeded expectations.
Before the penalty kicks, there were 80 minutes of intense soccer. Jesuit took the lead early in the second half. That freshman, Jake Baker, tied it up less than a minute later.
They had 2-3 players on Frankie the whole game, but they just weren't ready for Jake. They just had no idea that Jake was actually going to go into that game and do what he did. And I think that was a blessing in a lot of ways because they were focused on Kevin and Frankie. They knew Kevin and Frankie, both of those guys had played for teams throughout the state.
The penalty kick shootout was the first in OSAA history, and the epic 9 rounds remains the state record. 2 unlikely heroes emerged: goalkeeper Jeremy Weber, who saved 2 Jesuit attempts, and Gustavo Mendoza, who nailed the title-clinching shot.
We didn't have a doubt in our mind that he could stop a shot. We just never imagined in our mind that he was going to be the one to actually stop more than one shot and give us an opportunity in that game. But at that moment, as we were dwindling down and we had Victor Torres, Adam McDougall, Andy Ochoa, Edgar, myself, and I think Gustavo those were like the last 6 guys before Gustavo took the shot that were left to take the penalties. And outside of Gustavo, I don't trust any of those guys except for probably my brother, because the rest of us probably would have shanked that shot.
And then once they missed and Jeremy had blocked another penalty kick, we'd ask Gustavo just before if he'd take it. So Gustavo was like, you know what? I'll do it. So he stepped up and he did it. I don't get tired of watching that video of him making that last penalty kick. And I love hearing the crowd, the roar of the city, and then I love seeing us run and approach Gustavo and all of us running together. And I wish our crowd could have gone out there with us, but it was still special.
We were pretty confident at that point. Like at that point, we're like, all right, we got one of our better players taking this shot. You just saw it happen, and it was... Sorry, I think about Joe. But it was that moment where it's like, we all jumped up, and like more than anything, like I said, I just think about Joe, because like at that point, like everything came together. Joe's support, Jeremy's dad being our team manager. Like, I don't know if he had ever played a day of soccer in his life, but just that moment, like the physical feeling of like hearing everyone and then just going, there's just nothing like it.
I think of like the community that surrounded us, the village, right, that supported us throughout, and then especially in the semifinals, in the final, just seeing the crowds of people that came to support us.
In the aftermath, there were t-shirts, the pictures, the dinner at Olive Garden, the trophy presentation. Frankie Lopez did not want to give up the trophy once he got his hands on it.
And so when this came into my hands, you can look at a lot of the pictures, I always kept a grip on it. And I remember people wanting to hold them, just like, you can hold it with my hands on it, but I'm not letting it go. And I didn't let it go. I didn't let it go. No one held it. They held it with me holding it with them. And I took it home, and it stayed at my house until I got that phone call, and they said, if you don't return it. And I was like, okay, here it is. Because this meant so much.
We were all so mad. We're like, dude, you got to give the trophy back. We want to see a trophy. We want to see a trophy. He kept it at home for like 2 weeks.
This championship brought so much together in the McMinnville community.
One of the things that I always remember hearing both Burke and Hyder talk about was like how there was a division within the school that existed, and I think you can see it today. But it was like this moment that brought everyone together. It didn't matter like what our backgrounds were, what we had done before. Everyone came together. Football and soccer always had a rivalry within that school, but when it came to that state championship moment, the fact that we were gonna get an opportunity to take out Jesuit, like that brought the community together so much, and it was such a special moment.
I don't know. I got emotional. I'll be honest. I got emotional because we were more pure and innocent back then. You know, you live life and you move on. You have a family. I have a family now. So I think, man, we were just a group of boys, young men becoming men, and we just wanted to bring the city together, and we did. I don't know. We'll never forget it, and that's where I'm at today.
Well, you know, I still run into players from time to time, and when I do, we talk about that run, and I think different players had different successes in life, and they still are achieving those, but this is one of those core memories I think they will always remember the rest of their life. That won't be taken away from them.
Today, we welcome the 2006 boys soccer team to the McMinnville High School Hall of Fame.